In 262 BC, a merchant was walking through the streets of Handan, the capital of the Zhao state. He was rich, extraordinarily rich, but he wasn't satisfied. That day, he saw a man sitting alone in a courtyard. Poorly dressed, no attendants, no status, just another forgotten hostage from a foreign kingdom. The merchant studied him for a long moment. Then he said something that would echo through Chinese history for over 2,000 years. This is a rare commodity worth investing in. The hostage's name was Ziyi. The merchant's name was Lü Buwei, and the child that Ziyi would one day father, that child would conquer 6 kingdoms, unify China for the first time in history, and declare himself the first emperor, Qin Shi Huang. This is the story of the man who made it all possible, and who paid for it with his life. To understand this story, you need to know one thing about ancient China. For over 200 years, the country was divided into 7 rival kingdoms, each fighting to destroy the others. This period is known as the Warring States, and it produced some of the most ruthless political minds in human history. Lü Buwei wasn't born into power, he was born into trade. By his 30s, he had already built one of the largest merchant empires in the Warring States period. Moving goods across borders, buying low, selling high, he had turned commerce into an art form. When Lü Buwei met Ziyi in Handan, most people would have seen nothing. A minor prince, the 20th son of a crown prince who had 20 sons, sent to Shao as a hostage, the ancient equivalent of collateral in a diplomatic agreement between kingdoms, with barely enough money to survive. In the Warring States period, powerful kingdoms routinely sent their princes to enemy states as human guarantees of peace. Nobody cared whether Zai lived or died. But Lü Buwei saw something no one else did. The crown prince's favorite consort, Lady Huang, had no son. In ancient China, succession was everything. Without a biological heir, Lady Huang had no power base, no security, and no future once the crown prince died. She needed a son desperately. If Lü Buwei could convince Lady Huang to adopt Ziyi as her son, Ziyi would leap from obscurity to the front of the line of succession. The plan was audacious. The execution was meticulous. Lü Buwei spent half his fortune equipping Ziyi with carriages, servants, and connections. He spent the other half on rare treasures, gifts for Lady Huang, and traveled personally to the Qin court to make his case. He didn't just sell Ziyi, he sold a story about a devoted son who wept every night thinking of the mother he had never known. Lady Huang wept, she agreed. Ziyi was renamed Zichu, and overnight he went from forgotten hostage to crown prince's adopted heir. He didn't have to wait long. In 251 BC, the king of Qin died. The crown prince became king, King Shi Huang of Qin. But King Shi Huang reigned for just 3 days before he too died. Zichu Lü Buwei's investment ascended to the throne, King Zhu Hing of Qin. And Lü Buwei? He became Chancellor of Qin. Think of it as Prime Minister, but with even more power. The most powerful political position in the most powerful kingdom in China. His return on investment had come in less than a decade. 3 years later, King Zhu Shang died. His son, a boy of 13, became king. His name was Ying Sung. History would call him Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor. and Lü Buwei, the merchant from Handan, became his regent. Here is where the story gets complicated. According to Sima Qian's records of the Grand Historian, the most important historical text in Chinese history, Buwei had a concubine who was already pregnant when he gave her to Zichu. The child she bore was Yang Zhang, Qin Shi Huang. But here's the problem. The historian Qian Mu carefully examined the timeline and found that according to the strategies of the warring states, Lü Buwei didn't even arrive at Handan until Yingzhang had already been born, possibly for as long as 10 years. The dates simply don't add up. The historian Li Keyuan went further, concluding that Lü Buwei had neither the motive nor the means to be Yingzhang's father. So why did this story exist? Because Qin Shi Huang needed it to exist. When the emperor wanted to destroy Lü Buwei's reputation permanently, the most devastating weapon was scandal. When you can't defeat someone's legacy with facts, you destroy it with stories. For years, Lü Buwei ruled from the shadows. But as Qin Shi Huang grew older, something shifted. The emperor began to notice something that no ruler can afford to ignore. Lü Buwei had 3,000 personal retainers, scholars, strategists, and advisors loyal to him personally, not to the throne. He had compiled a massive philosophical encyclopedia called the Lu Chunshu and hung it from the gates of Xianyang. In ancient China, words were power. The right to declare something perfect and unchangeable belonged to one person only, the emperor, by hanging his book from the city gates and challenging anyone to improve it. Lü Buwei wasn't just showing off his scholarship. He was claiming the emperor's authority for himself. He wasn't just a chancellor anymore. He was a rival power center. And for Qin Shi Huang, a man who would go on to burn books, bury scholars, and build the Great Wall, the existence of a rival power center was simply not something he was willing to tolerate. In 237 BC, Qin Shi Huang gave Lü Buwei a title that had never existed before in Chinese history, Zhongfu, which translates roughly as second father. Think about what that meant. The most powerful emperor in Chinese history was publicly calling a merchant his father figure. In a culture where the emperor was considered the son of heaven, this was not an honor. It was a warning sign. Then Qin Shi Huang sent Lü Buwei a letter. It was short. It was devastating. What have you done for Qin? What is your relationship to the king of Qin? You and your entire household go to Shu. Shu was what we now call Sichuan, on the far western edge of the empire. In ancient China, it was the end of the known world, a place of exile. A one-way journey for men who had fallen from power. Lü Buwei understood exactly what this letter meant. The exile was just the first step. The execution order would follow. He had seen it happen before. He had been the one making it happen. He poured himself a cup of poised wine and drank it. The merchant who had bought an empire died alone on the road to exile. Lü Buwei saw what no one else could see. He saw a forgotten hostage and recognized a future emperor. He made the greatest investment in the history of China, and he won. Ed the seeds of his destruction, 3,000 retainers, 1,000 gold piece challenge, the title of second father. Every one of those things was a declaration of power. and every declaration of power was a message to Qin Shi Huang. There is someone in this kingdom more influential than you. Lü Buwei used a merchant's mind to win a political game. But he forgot the first rule of playing games with emperors. You don't win, you survive. First, the greatest investments are the ones no one else can see. Everyone saw a forgotten hostage. Lü Buwei saw a future emperor. The biggest opportunities in any market are hiding in plain sight, in the places everyone else has already dismissed. When the crowd is chasing the same thing, the real value is somewhere else entirely. Second, your most dangerous moment is your most successful one. Lü Buwei's greatest triumph was also the moment his destruction began. He was too visible, too powerful, too indispensable. In any organization, the moment you become more influential than the person above you, the countdown has already started. The more successful you become, the quieter you need to be. Third, know when to walk away. Fan Li, the strategist who helped King Gujian of Yu destroy the Wu kingdom, walked away the moment the war was won. He went on to become one of the wealthiest men in Chinese history. 3 times over, Lü Buwei couldn't let go. Knowing when to exit is not weakness. It is the rarest and most valuable form of wisdom. Most dangerous place to stand is directly between ambition and a throne. The men who survived were not the most powerful. They were the ones who knew when to step aside. If this is the kind of history that makes you think differently, subscribe and I'll see you next time.